Hello, this is Professor Bustillo-Booth, and this is a video tutorial for the third stage of the multi-stage Secret Shopper project for Business 101 Introduction to Business. Let's go ahead and get started. In this video tutorial, I'll quickly discuss the learning outcomes and then walk you through stage 3 by using the form to develop the product that you will submit on Canvas. Here are the 3 learning outcomes that we've discussed in the past. Again, you are examining a small business so you can understand how it exists within a free enterprise system. You will then analyze its functions, mainly operations and marketing, and you'll do this through your observation and the submission of a report where you talk about strengths and weaknesses and then offer your recommendations. The Secret Shopper activity has 5 stages. And by now, you will have completed stage 1, where you chose a company and conducted an industry analysis, and then proceeded to creating performance measures against which to observe the company. Stage 3, which is our focus now, is to observe the business. I want to make sure that I take a moment to explain an expectation that whatever feedback you may have received in the previous stage, you will have applied and addressed here in stage 3. And so if you did not have appropriate prompts to develop here, and I gave you some guidance for that, you are expected to have addressed that here in stage 3. Let's now go ahead and take a look at the document that you will be using to observe. Once you download that file, you will see something like this. And I want you to take a look at the 2 different tabs at the bottom. The first one will say Observation Template, and that is the one that you will fill out. The second one will say Introductions, and it says Do Not Use because I don't want you filling it out, but I do want you to look at it because it contains the instructions. Let me go ahead and orient you to the structure of this worksheet. You'll see something familiar here. Of course, you will fill out the company, and there's a default marketing objective to improve customer service, which is the default marketing objective for everyone. And then you'll notice that the first 2 columns are familiar to you because they were there for stage 2, where you develop your performance standards, or what we also call prompts, for each of the categories that you see here. All right. And then you'll see that there's 2 sets of these columns right here, one for a store A and a theoretical store B. What store B is for extra credit. And extra credit are for those folks who have a business that has a secondary location. Okay? And it's only for that. And you'll have the opportunity to gain up to 5 additional points. That doesn't mean you'll get all 5 points, but you can gain up to 5 extra credit points at the last stage of the exercise. Okay, and this is to reward those that go to distance and will happen to have, additional locations to observe. So if you don't have that, then you just ignore this particular column set right here. Okay, so within the column set, there are 2 columns. One that says Other, and the other one says Likert. Let me focus your attention on Likert. Likert is a measuring scale that allows the observer to measure the degree to which they agree to a particular prompt. Okay, so for example, in this case, it says the parking lot is clean and free of debris, and from a scale of 1 through 5, because that's the scale we're using, Likert scale 1 through 5, and here, it's a scale. 1 is very poor, 2 is poor, acceptable is 3, 4 is good, and 5 is very good, and or derivatives of the same meaning, 1 being far less optimal, 5 being optimal. In this case, the parking lot is clean and free of debris, and I scored it a 2. And why? Because I wrote down my notes. The parking lot had a number of shopping carts in the stalls, making that spot unavailable unless the cart was moved. And so the assumption here is that the establishment should be keeping an eye out on the parking stalls because that's where customers, park their cars so they can then go inside the building. And if somebody isn't attending the parking stalls and getting those, in this case, shopping carts out of the way, then people don't have a means to go and park their cars. All right. So it's important to go ahead and take care of that. And then so you'll I gave them a 2 because, you know, there were stalls, but there were just a number of the stalls were unavailable. And same here on line 6, the associate greeted me by this amount of time, and I put in, you know, really you should write in the kind of time, in this case by say 2 minutes, you know, if that's what I wrote down in my original in my document. That's what I would then put in here. And then I would note in the other column how many minutes I was actually greeted. Okay. And then I assigned that a score. So in this case, I was greeting 2 minutes, and I said, oh, that's sort of okay. So I have a 3. And then I note here what I observed. This notation is very important because this is not only a scorecard, but it's also your observation notes. And in here, you'll see I wrote something like, I could see that there were 4 employees as I entered the store. 2 of them were chatting with each other, and 1 was at the counter helping another customer, and 1 was cleaning displays, and eventually said hello after about 5 minutes. And so, you know, somebody did come and say hello to me, and so I did just gave him a 3. You know, it could be argued that there should have been a 2, but you know, perhaps the way this person, you know, that 3 minutes was actually acceptable for this particular establishment. All right. So then you just go through that. Again, I want to note that the other column is really kind of your notation that may or may not be numerical, right? So in this case, 5 minutes, while it is numerical, it is really the quantity of minutes. So 5 minutes in this case. And I just want to notate that here and then assign it a score. All right, so another example of that, for example, where I use other is there's sufficient number of cashiers, and I put, well, they only had 1, and so I gave them a 1. Why? Because when I was ready, the line was long, and there was only 1 cashier. All right, the cashier held a long conversation with each other, and elongating the time to check out. So with each customer. So, you know, having a long conversation with the customer while there's a long line is generally not a good idea. And so I gave them a 1. And I put 1 here so I could remember that there was only 1 cashier, and that's why they got 1. And I put context in here because I provided notes. Now, if you are expected to write notes for each of your observations, the reason why you need notes here is because when you go through and write your findings in stage 4 and 5, you will need this notation to write about. Okay, and so do not rely on your memory. And besides, if you don't write notes, you will not get points for, you know, this particular element that you will be measured against. So you want to make sure you write good, clean notes. And yes, the notes will have to be spell checked and in proper, you know, language use form, because again, this is expected to be, this is regarded as a professional document that your client can then look at and, you know, review. So you want to look credible by writing professionally. You'll just complete that for each of the 5 prompts. Now, speaking of these prompts or performance measures, if your stage 2 comments were around, you know, refine these, make sure you do X, Y, and Z to each of these prompts, you'll want to make sure you've addressed those in the 3rd stage. The secret shopper activity is developmental. It assumes that there will be refinements, and you should take advantage of the refinements, or, you know, your assessment scores will be lower for not having developed and improved your product along the way. As with the other stages, as soon as you're done with your file and you've done due diligence with language use matters, meaning you have spell checked and you've made sure these are full sentences, capitalization, and the rest of it, you will then submit it through Canvas. After the submission and after the deadline, you will be assigned 3 peer reviews, and you'll want to pay attention to the deadline for those peer reviews because they may differ from, you know, what you may see on the screen that when I scrolled through the video tutorial. Because again, this video is for all of my classes across the different quarters that I teach. If you do need further guidance, please do reach out to me. I want to help you. I want to help you get to the product that you can be proud of. And so let me know how else I can support you so that we get you to the place where you can be proud of your submission. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to your work.